frequently getting alien STDs as we cruise through the Delta Quadrant. It's V'ger Please. Hatefully Voyaging, my name is Joseph.
And I'm your penicillin pal, Peter.
Peter, what episode of Voyager did we watch this week?
We watched Season 5, Episode 16, The Disease. But before we get into it, I wanted to...
Oh, hold on. You were incorrect. It's Episode 17.
You sure? Because
Dark Frontier was 15 and 16. Netflix lies to you, sir. It is the 17th production.
That's going to throw us way off for the rest of the season.
Just check Netflix. Or check Memory Alpha, man.
Gosh, I think we should make Netflix the true king in the equation. We'll call it 17, but I think we all know the truth is it's 16. Before we get in, though, I want to talk about some Star Trek world stuff going on right now.
Did something happen today? I'm going to brace myself.
The Lower Decks came out, the first episode.
What did? Oh, okay.
What a fragmented, crazy world we live in. We're a Roku house, and I just lost access to HBO Go or Now or whatever one it is because they're pushing HBO Max, and Roku won't host it. Neither will Amazon. Like, they're fragmenting this stuff so bad. They're really pushing people in the hands of piracy, but there's no one place people go anymore. You don't even have the CBS stuff on the air, I think. So this is probably another exclusive. I don't know. I'll watch it. I'll give it a go. Per our previous agreement from last week, if it's good, I'll give you the thumbs up. If it's bad, I'll give you 2 thumbs up and set you up the bomb because I'm a good friend like that. But
yeah, just fantastic. Appreciate you.
We talked before about how Star Trek's more than Star Trek. Star Wars can only be stuff a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but like Star Trek has been so inclusive to other properties, Orville, Galaxy Quest, other things floating out there. And perhaps the most important, and while not a strong spiritual successor to Star Trek per se, what I would argue is really our generation's Star Trek, and that is Mass Effect. And on a whim, I was like, why isn't there a Mass Effect remaster? And on a whim, I went and I checked into it, and I think we are going to see a Mass Effect trilogy remaster coming out in 2020. And
what?
It got me so fucking hyped.
What? Where did you find this information?
Just look, man. There's something out there that's an untitled EA HD product, and all signs are pointing to it being a trilogy re-release.
You think that they're just going to drop that? Just they're going to put that fucking shit out there just without ever telling anyone they were working on it?
Sure. They'll build hype when they get a little closer and they've got a good release date set. So I don't think it's going to pop up out of the blue, but there's been nothing out of the franchise in a long time. And with Final Fantasy VII Remaster and just so much retread of old properties, just a rape and pillage of any game they can. Like, I just bought Gears of War 1 Remastered Super HD, whatever, for like $3 off some sale just because I wanted that cover-based shooter. And I'm like, where the fuck is Mass Effect? So
hey, listen, I would love it if they put out a remaster of Mass Effect, particularly Mass Effect 1.
Yes.
Like, Mass Effect 2 and 3 are actually very playable still. I replayed Mass Effect 2 somewhat recently, since COVID happened at least.
Mm-hmm.
But Mass Effect 1 is just not playable, right?
I disagree 100%.
What?
I think that Mass Effect 1 is way better. God, we're going to have to make this more breakout Patreon content.
Maybe we broke off 25 minutes. We've been podcasting together for the 40 minutes and we haven't actually talked about Star Trek.
Yeah, my wife's yet pissed. It's already 10 o'clock. We can do a special on this, but I think that Mass Effect 1 is a different game than 2 and 3 because Mass Effect 1 is a true RPG where the other ones are action RPGs. But I still think that Mass Effect 1, again, for something that was like a 360 launch title, almost, holds up super well. It's stiff, but it's not as bad as I think most people would remember it. The biggest culprit is that fucking elevator on the Normandy going down to the cargo bay, and the god awful inventory management system with tons of clone junk. But the Mako and the, like, I think they establish mood and setting better in one than they do in the other two.
I agree that it's very good for setting the universe up, and there's a lot that is, makes 2 and 3 great games, but I feel like 1 was like the problem with Mass Effect 1 is they made it too much like Dragon Age, and Dragon Age is like was a Baldur's Gate style game, and I think focusing it into being an action RPG was actually much better for the entire franchise.
I think
like
that
the games 2 and 3 benefited so much from a tighter gameplay focus that made them fun to play. I know I'm like galaxy brain, revelation over here, but when a game is fun to play, I want to play it more,
I think Mass Effect 1 did a good job in making the universe feel like a lonely place that was scary and dangerous. And that 2 and 3 really closed everything together into a more tighter knit, accessible, colorful galactic community. And I think it was a growth that made sense, that humanity was accepted into the Citadel in its place as a galactic citizen faster than anyone else because of the characteristics of the humans. But I did really enjoy the atmosphere and the immersiveness of being alone on these planets, driving around the Mako looking for a prefab base to go loot and plunder. So I'll be very interested to see if they do remaster this. Like, how do you handle Mass Effect 1? Because that's a very divisive game in terms of who enjoyed the play style, who liked the Mako, who liked the overwhelming inventory, and who just wanted to, flip the table over and get their chop on. But the disease.
Yeah, let's finally talk about this episode before our
Anyways,
wives
I'm fucking hyped about the opportunity for a Mass Effect remaster. Fucking, I got so many AAA titles I got to play, but god damn it, if I could get access to that, I would just put that right to my playlist and be a very happy boy.
I recently played through Ace Combat 7 and Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which were like 2 games I meant to play and finally got to because of COVID. My next up that I'm going to play through is Ghost of Tsushima, though. That game just seems baller.
That game's dick.
I want to play it. I always like Kurosawa movies, and it's basically you get to play one. So anyway, The Disease. This is a movie about Harry Kim getting an alien STD. I'm sorry, this is a show about Harry Kim getting an alien STD, and the STD is wanting more of that sweet alien booty.
It's been a while since we've had a dud this caliber, so I'm actually looking forward to going balls deep on this. We open with a really cool scene. It's your classic Spaceballs long phallic ship that just keeps going and going. And it's neat because we all know how big a Star Destroyer is, and that's what this is. It's the Star Destroyer shop, but seeing this long modular cargo ship, it's like, this seems like it's long, but where's Voyager at for scale? You can't tell, so it's an unknown. And they do a cool camera zoom in where they pan, they give you a little detail work, and then they zoom in, and then they zoom in, and then they zoom in, and finally they go in through one of the windows on the ship and into doorways. So now you've established scale, and this ship is fucking massive. Later on, we'll see a Voyager actually docked with it, and Voyager's like a fly on a lion compared to this thing. And as the door opens, in comes tumbling Harry Kim, tongue wrestling a very, very attractive 90s girl.
This 90s girl is played by an actress named Musetta Vander. It's Dutch because she's from South Africa. She plays the stereotypical 90s sci-fi eye candy in essentially every single property that you can think of. She's been on Babylon 5. She was on Xenia, Warrior Princess. She was on Stargate SG-1. Like, she did this. She has that look of probably somehow foreign white person. that was super in vogue in those properties back in the day. She's got the accent to match. I thought she was maybe like Eastern European, but turns out she's from South
So
Africa.
does that make her into a character actor essentially?
Kind of. The character is mid to late 90s elfin
Hottie.
sci-fi girl, stereotype.
Well, good. It's a character
She
actor.
did it. She nailed it. She did a great job.
She did have a great job. And as she goes tumbling into the bed with Harry and they start ripping each other's clothes off. Spoiler alert, I'm going to complain about the turtleneck in the fucking Starfleet issue tank top.
Listen, Starfleet officer, the protocol is when you bang, you do it with your turtleneck on.
Oh, God.
Right?
What if it's not just a turtleneck? What if that's actually like a bodysuit? And like if they take off all this, they're wearing a purple
Mormon
leotard.
Underwear. It's the special you can't ever take it off. Okay.
That is the prime directive right there. As they go tumbling in, you are confronted with a truth. And that truth is, I think if we were to sit down and run a tally, Harry Kim has more romantic encounters and interests than Tom Paris does. And granted, Tom's been severely stunted for the past 2 seasons by B'Elanna Torres, but for what should have been the bad boy playboy of the Delta Quadrant, it's almost always Harry Kim being in these romantic situations, followed up by probably Chakotay.
I think they've put Chakotay and Tuvok in the barrel the exact same amount of times, which is twice.
Well, and Chakotay had his never remember girlfriend, his Borg girlfriend, Seska. Who else had the hots for him? Maybe Janeway?
Well, Seska had the hots for him, but there wasn't an episode about them having a relationship. Their relationship occurred previously, so I don't count that. You could almost count Janeway. I think that's much closer.
No, Seska's for sure, and even in the holodeck episode, you still
then they're tied. I think because there's been exactly 4 episodes about Harry Kim getting down, including an entire planet of women devoted to wanting to literally fuck the energy out of him.
Fuck him to death.
So yeah, he's they're ripping each other's shirts off, and he glows. And after the teaser is when we get the setup of what's going on, which is that Voyager is trying to help this giant generational ship.
What's a generational ship, Joe?
Typically, it is used in reference of a ship in which generations of people grow up. Essentially, it's the repository of a civilization over decades, if not centuries.
This plot sucks.
That's deep. That was so deep. Oh my God. Share more of your insights, Peter.
This xenophobic race, we don't really see the first contact. All right. When we come into the big plot here, it's Janeway covered in grease, which is standout, right? You never see the actual Starfleet duty uniforms dirty until what was the Space Muppet Adventure that Frakes directed, when Neelix dumps a plate of spaghetti on Tom.
Cartuition.
Tom, that's the first time you ever see one of these uniforms get dirty. So to see the amount of grime and shit they have on Janeway, Paris, Torres, and Kim is really jarring.
Yeah, it looks like they're in the middle of degreasing an engine or whatever. They're working for a living right now.
So they are in this engine room. It's got this real Battlestar Galactica, like old Ironsides vibe to it. The president of the ship is down there working, and he's arguing with Janeway that she should not be down there. That wasn't the agreement. And so here's the whole picture. You never see first contact. It's a ship that goes out of its way to avoid everybody. They're xenophobic. They know the Delta Quadrant's dangerous as fuck. And whereas Voyager goes and sticks their dick in every bowl of mashed potatoes they come across, these guys say nope. They keep their pants on, they fly straight and narrow, and they dodge all the consequences preemptively. And of course, Janeway wanting to get up in everybody's business is like, hey, we want to be friends. She forces himself on there. We find out they're having some engine problems, and Janeway has just... the same Janeway who was just belly aching about, all of the time they wasted dodging Borg cubes, has now been docked there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I appreciate that they gave at least the rationale as to the reason we're doing this is we really want them to give up some of their technology in regards to environmental control, right? Unlike uh, I don't think I hated this episode nearly as much as you do. I think its failures are entirely on the backs of Garrett Wang. I think and a couple kind of missing pieces of dialogue perhaps. The idea that I'm going to help these people partially out of Starfleet goodwill, which is, this is our thing, right? Like we're exploring the Delta Quadrant in the name of the Federation.
When
So
we're
I
not
saw a ship in
mugging the
trouble.
Borg, sure, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're not committing highway robbery. We're helping people out. But also, well, these people are really good at surviving in space, and I could foresee my ship having to spend decades in space. So if I can get them to give up a little bit of their know-how, that's certainly worth it to me. And hey, we also helped them out. That's just good. That's good space karma.
Janeway has a good line where she says, "I can't help but wonder, looking at your ship that's hundreds of years old, if Voyager is just beginning your journey." And she establishes that, you could teach me things that could have a big impact. That's still flimsy for them sinking 2 weeks of time fixing their engine. Like, at least throwing like, hey, also we need some deuterium and you guys seem like you're flush with it. Maybe you could like bust off a chunk for us. As it stands, they don't frame the episode especially compelling. And then the main guy, whose name is what, Jarok?
Yes.
You would only know this guy, and it killed me until I finally had to look it up. This was the bad guy from Dumb and Dumber, which I'm going to argue should be the episode title for this episode, because it's going to get dumb and then dumber. But this was the bad guy in Dumb and Dumber, who seemed to be the family friend of the redheaded lady, who was really directing the skeevy MTV VJs to kidnap her husband and abuse the situation. And he is your typical by the books. The traditions are laws and set in stone, and we cannot deviate, and we owe everything to the people who came before us. Hardliner, who will eventually erode over the course of the episode to become warmer and warmer towards Voyager, as Voyager proves itself through its altruistic obligations.
So it's the actor who played it was Charles Rocket, who's somewhat famous for being I think the first person to say the F word on network television.
You just said the F word on our podcast. we say fuck every other word, Joe. We're not Saturday Night Live. You can say it.
Why do you have to be so fucking hurtful, Peter? Why do you have to wound me like that? It's late. You have kept me up past my bedtime so that we can talk about a different podcast and then Mass Effect. We are barely through Act 1 of the show. Charles Rocket dropped the fuck bomb on Saturday Night Live in the 80s, and that was probably the thing he was most famous for.
Well, I know him as the Dumb and Dumber guy, so but that's what's going on. We get two real views of this crazy ship. We get the dirty ass little cramped engine room, and then we get crewman Super Hottie's
Love Shack,
right? One thing we left out in the opening scene, as she was tearing the clothing off of Harry Kim, she starts to glow like a nightlight, and he sees her glow and he goes, whoa, and then he leans back and then closes his eyes and he starts to glow. So something's up. We know that right off the jump.
So the initial scenes with Janeway trying to get the Varro to like be more cooperative happen. We get a little bit of the backstory. We understand that they've been at this for hundreds of years, and I think they're trying to restart their warp engines by like basically giving them a jump.
So you've got Voyager not only docked, but like jumper cables, like they are connected, and that's going to become an issue later on. But yeah, like Voyager is really given it the old college try, both in terms of involving the entire crew in this project and physically committing Voyager's resources to doing it. I want you to take what's happening here, and that's a ship of people who want nothing to do with them that are trying to fix their engines. Voyager putting 2 weeks of effort into jump starting a fucking engine, and now I want you to compare that to the weakest shit of all time, Jetrel, when there was a moon with millions of people obliterated by a weapon of mass destruction, and Janeway and her ship full of scientists. It was the captain and the fucking security chief who doesn't know how to lock a goddamn door, fiddling around on the transporter for 15 seconds before giving up and condemning the rest of those people to that nuclear holocaust hell.
I would like to also point out that the near B plot of this episode was Tuvok's continued clown shoes level of security.
Oh, I've got close notes on that. Don't worry.
Okay, I thought so. I figured you probably paid strict attention to that. But yeah, they definitely put in way more effort here to help these folks stranded on their space bus than they did trying to resurrect all of Neelix's family. But you know, whatever. It was
I'm
season
gonna be
one.
hot
Can't
about
count it.
Jetrel for the next fucking 6 weeks.
Yeah, because we've been reminded of it recently. Yeah,
I'm back on the warpath. Get ready for this shit. Interesting tidbit gets dropped in the dialogue here. The last time they talked about the voyage, I want to say they had nailed it at 3 years. And now suddenly we've jumped to 5 years because there was a seasonal mismatch. And I don't know. I'm going to have to go back and look at star dates. But did you pick up on it? Because they really drive home the fact that they've been doing this for 5 years now.
Right. No, and I think that's tracked. That's tracked because I remember when they were dealing with a lot of 7 of 9 stuff, and they said it's been a year since she's joined the ship, and that was, you know, approximately the season before.
I'm gonna have to go back and look because I want to.
They try to track the season to it actually being a year. It's just sometimes the episodes are very compressed, while other episodes, like you know, famously when Janeway and Chakotay have their not romance because of a monkey, while they're stranded on a planet, it's like 6 months worth of time that gets wasted of them going like back and forth.
6 months. That's a fourth of the time that Janeway added on to their travel home just by dodging those pesky old Borg cubes. Harry Kim is doing some real guilt tripping to himself. They just make it impossible to like the Harry Kim character sometime. Like, here he is.
Before we go too far into this, I did like when they panned back to them in the bedroom. It is like the most tasteful PG nudity, where 90s hottie is just like has the sheet over her. It's such like a stereotypical move of like, we'll have this character wearing nothing, but we have to make it so children can see this.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Harry's wearing a fucking tank top with matching color boxers.
Hey man, you got to match when you're a Starfleet officer. Got to match.
Can't go wrong with that purple. You know, they just make it so hard to like the character. Like, he's always bumbling around. And Tom Paris is going to get on his ass hard about this on a walk and talk back on Voyager. He's sitting there, he's wringing his hands like he's finally hooked up. And to my knowledge, this is the first time he's actually, which lo and behold, his girlfriend isn't mentioned once, which has been a big holdout for him traditionally. But, you know, he's finally hooked up and kind of given in and had something nice. Oh my God, I violated so many Starfleet protocols and this and that. And his mind's clearly on the ship. And she's like, why don't you come back to bed? And he's just such a stick in the mud. And it's like, you're fucking killing me. And there's going to be a theme that follows this episode. Well, let's talk real quick. So finally, you figure out he's been fucking on the clock when both of them are supposed to be working on this engine project. Right. He scurries back off to engineering, says, okay, well, you come in later. And they're right in the part where they're going to try and jumpstart this thing. It's B'Elanna, it's Paris. You know, why wouldn't the helmsman be involved? Because he is a Mary Sue. And it's the captain. And then Harry kind of sneaks in just as this project's failing. Everybody's covered in grease. Tom knows what's up. Tom sees him come in.
Tom's a veteran of fucking on the clock. Like,
yeah,
maybe not on Voyager, but he's done his share of fucking on the clock.
To that point, I want to say yes. Harry has taken moves because Harry will later abuse the transporter for Nookie purposes, and that is classic Tom. Classics pulled that shit with the B'Elanna. And then Tom sees her come wandering in like 2 seconds later. He's like, uh-oh. And when they get back over on the ship, Tom's like, lays it on him hard. And an excellent moment. of self-referential acknowledgement. Tom's like, listen, man, you're always going after the unobtainable. Boom, hologram. Boom, ex-Borg. Boom, the wrong twin calling out the Delaney's. And now it's xenophobe.
This is why I think this episode fails only in the ability of its main actor. Then in the hands of a more capable actor, not a different character. Like Harry Kim is probably the right character for this sort of growth episode, because the idea is he is no longer the straight-laced kid that came out of the academy. He's learned a lot as a Starfleet officer, but also he's going through doing shit the young adults do, and growing wiser sometimes through fucking kind of doing the wrong thing, breaking some rules, like everyone eventually does it at some point in their life. That idea is fine. It's just Garrett Wang. Like, he just can't bring the level of gravitas necessary to deliver on some of this dialogue. He is set up over and over and over again in this episode, between his scenes with 90s Hottie and then with Janeway, to a more limited extent 7 of 9.
Yes.
To deliver on these big character moments. He's given all the space and all the dialogue and all the opportunity he possibly can, and he just fucking can't do it. He just comes off like an unlikable weirdo, whiner, and not authentically emotional. Engaged. Like, he can't find that last gear to like demonstrate like that this is how he's actually feeling, because the point of this episode is that he's glowing because he when he swapped sperm with the 90s Hottie, like they became like connected on a biochemical level, and everyone assumes that his infatuation with this woman is based on that, where he's like, no, it's actually not. I just love her, and I don't, I want to be in love with her. Like, I like it. My mind is not being controlled. My judgment is being altered because I want to do this thing, and I know it's the wrong thing to do, not because I'm being compelled to, like, by some fucking space, mind control bullshit. Which is a cool idea, because it plays against all of the tropes that we're used to on this show over and over and over again, where he's like, no, I'm good. I just want to really fuck this girl. Right? And he just can't fucking do it. He just cannot deliver that shit.
In one way, the show is extremely self-referential in that Tom calls him out on all this other shit. On the other hand, like, I feel like sometimes the writers are too kind to the characters in their interactions. There's never any, I don't want to say malice or ill will, but it's rare to see ribbing or not even cruelty, but like cattiness. Sometimes Tuvok or Chakotay will throw some towards Neelix, but like, I think somewhere, especially between Chakotay and Janeway later on, where they're discussing Kim, and like Chakotay's like, don't you think you're being a little hard on him? Like, somewhere there could have been like, we are talking about a guy who like super falls in love with holograms. Like, yeah, he's sick with this bioelectrical connection, but like, this dude is a simp, and he falls hard when he sees anything with a pair of eyes and 2 boobs. Like, yeah, I feel like there was some deserved ribbing that should have came from the higher echelons. Biggest stumbling block in this episode. We just came out of what the hell is that Borg episode? Dark Frontier, which completely fucks the Borg's timeline and retcons a ton of shit, essentially, right? Then you get into this, and you've got Harry Kim sitting there pining over, oh, I've broken so many protocols. And it's like, I figure that these were protocols that Janeway laid out. Like, I don't want you talking to these guys, or we need to be whatever. Cool. No, he's talking about Starfleet protocols, and there'll be a chastising he gets later on from Janeway directly, where he quotes the fucking Starfleet protocol that before engaging in sexual relations with another race, you need an okay from the commanding officer and clearance from the chief medical officer. What the fuck? What? 2 words for you, Joe. 2 words. Do you know what they are?
What are they?
Thomas Riker. William Thomas Riker. Also, James Kirk. Okay? Yeah. These dudes who go out and crush vagina 24/7. William Riker
literally
slays so much vagina, there wasn't enough of his dick to go around. They had to make 2 dicks to cover all of the vagina this guy is pounding. Okay.
Yeah, he's just scattered his seed across the entire Alpha Quadrant.
So much seed,
little baby Riker is just everywhere,
popping out of the atmosphere and getting left behind. Okay, that's how much dick he swings around. Okay, and you can go through tons of this stuff. You telling me that season 1 and 2 pre-beard Riker, when we've got Playboy, I haven't grown up yet, William Riker, that he's getting a fucking hall pass from Jean-Luc Picard at his most ball-bustiest?
Oh yeah, back season 1, Jean-Luc Picard definitely gave 0 shits.
He was not Riker's BFF at all.
No, he was his boss, and he was not cool. You know, like that was not happening.
I get original series.
Billy Riker was putting that dick exactly where he wanted, and he was not telling his boss about it.
So, I mean, he fucks so many people, like pre-first contact, like the trans, like non-sexual binary person. He fucked that. That was like a first like, it's crazy. And I get, you could say, all right, well, Kirk, it was the old Starfleet Wild West, and Bones was his homeboy, and he was his own boss. So why can't he get a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to go stick it in someone green? But like, this is so revisionist crazy to me. Like, if there's one thing you can say about the 24th century post-scarcity Federation, it is a swinger society, right? And we've talked about it before. So for this sexual prudishness that's reinforced by punishable guidelines just is fucking absurd. And it's such an important part of the episode because it leads to his reprimand and why Janeway's so disappointed, blah, 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 blah. Like, man, no fucking way. Get out of here. And this is, it's bewildering, which makes sense because this is probably Kenneth Bewilder's weakest entry I think we've seen. It's like, it's not his worst, but I think it's a letdown for the peaks and valleys that he's established. But it is bewildering that he would have something that's this far off the mark. So, go ahead.
Never mind. Go ahead.
So, Tom gives it to him and says, listen, you're going after the wrong chick. You got to lay off. Big brother Tom, does him a solid and as always, tries to rein him in from whatever goony little heartthrob he's going to have this week. And he's like, all right, you're right. I got her out of my mind. Walks into his corner and immediately calls her up on an encrypted subspace communication directly to her thing, which...
it's been 22 minutes since I talked to you. It's very high school.
Oh, it was very painful. And it's hard to sit there and watch. Therefore, if you could think of one thing right now, what would it be? Like them dedicating a good 2 or 3 minutes to this dialogue of like, I miss you. I'm thinking about you. If you could be here right now, would you? And it's so cringy and god awful to watch because we've all been there.
Yeah, because we know, because we did it. And we're like, now you're like, oh, I know I've done that.
God, like I was doing that in 6th grade, but Carrie, you're 20.
You're an adult.
Like, dude, you went to college. You went to space
You've died,
college.
Dude. You're real.
Yeah, you've been decompressed by the holodeck and reassembled by Q, I think. Like, this is what you're doing with your 4th chance at life? Like, come on, dog. You're like a cat. You gotta live, not this. So,
in possibly the most bro tier move that we've seen since the shoot, his little I miss you space cell phone call gets found out by Tuvok,
By Detective Tuvok, the worst Tuvok.
And so pro-criminal Tom Paris is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna totally detect that, and then cuts the transmission off so that Tuvok can't locate where it happened or what happened. Of course, Tuvok getting fucking completely buffaloed by, casual convict Tom, is just start of the meme of his incompetence in this episode. But I do love that he's like, his immediate thing is, I'm not going to do the right Starfleet thing. I, who was recently demoted, am going to cover for him by committing crimes myself. Because
not only am I a convict, but I am a slave to my own convictions. I am a Tomvict for many reasons. So he sees it. He goes, oh shit, that's Harry. I know exactly what's going on. Smudges the record on the bridge on the shift. And it's Tuvok and it's Chakotay. Like, we need to find out. And then Tom's like, I bet it was just subspace interference. And both those dumb motherfuckers like, oh, Tom, I guess you're right. We're just going to drop it. Like, Tuvok, who doesn't drop anything, especially at the word of Tom Paris, who he always doubts.
Oh, I like the idea that Tom knows that these guys are so gullible now that he can just feed them any excuse, right? Like, he has got them wrapped around his convict finger so concretely that he just needs to shit out a C-tier excuse and it's going to be good enough, and he knows. It's like, he knows how bad Tuvok is at his job.
It's an absurd scene. He sits there, he like makes this real exaggerated, like, oh God, that was a close one, Harry, you're in trouble. I love it. It works. It's great. And we can say, yes, this portrays Tuvok in a really silly, absurd light, but it's truthful. Tuvok sucks at his job. He's going to suck at his job later. He's going to suck at his job before this and after this. Like,
he's going to have an alien tell him that he sucks at his job. He's going to have Neelix do his job better than him.
Yeah. This might be a caricature moment, but it's truthful. Like, it's great. We get a lot of screen time over in the ladies' quarters with her Magic TV, which looks like a Samsung LCD flat panel from like 2012.
Yeah, it does. And it was very reminiscent.
It's hilarious to see them nail near future technology so well. Like, I mean, they're all over there. Like, it's her computer, it's her comm device. Like, she's really up in this. And for something that just didn't exist at all then, flat panel TVs, it was wild to see them really nail the design of what will become the standardized LCD flat panel TV.
Right down to the base, too.
Yes, that's what sold. That was one of the most exciting parts of the entire episode for me. It's like, wow, that's a really good TV they predicted. Move over, iPad. There's a new wow factor.
Tom covers for Harry, and there's a meeting, I think, in one of the cargo bays. It's Seven's cargo bay because it's got the regeneration chambers. The one where she can just pull shit out of the wall and access the captain's logs.
The one where there's phaser rifles laying around. That's a really important cargo bay.
She has only one. She's got just 7 of 9's workplace shooting compression rifle specifically. Like, this is compression rifle is when I'm going to shoot my friends and coworkers. This is Mama's gun. That's stored in there.
Old Fast Eddie.
So he's like, yo, bro, I covered for you because, we're bros and you stabbed a man in prison for me. But you were about caught. So you should really make sure that you don't get caught next time because, I know how bad it'll be for you. I've been in prison recently on this ship. Tom's
like, I know that my recent actions of terrorism to blow up the underwater infrastructure of an entire planet, which resulted in my demotion, might overshadow it. But I would like to point out to you that the most anybody has ever gotten in trouble on this ship prior to that was Balan and I for dry humping on a console. Like, Janeway does not like sex. You need to chill out.
Not a fan. Don't get caught. Fortunately for him, he goes to Astrometrics with 7 of 9, and they have some awkward dialogue where of all the people to fucking ask, Harry Kim's like, hey, 7 of 9, you ever been in love? Like, fucking of course she hasn't. You've known her entire actual human life. You've known her. You wouldn't be aware if she had been, because it would have happened on the ship, and it would have been weird for everybody. You were the one who was trying to fucking get hot and heavy with her. She offered to rip your clothes off once. Why are you asking her this question?
You shit the bed. You squandered that, Harry.
Yeah.
I like that
Anyway.
7 wants that dirt. Like, he hints around, it's like, whatever. And, like, you find out the power of gossip is stronger than Borg party pooping, as, like, she's like, what's this in regards? Like, you see it bubble through, and I enjoyed that little bit of something. She's not in the episode much, but that little bit of curiosity clawing itself to the surface, I thought was a strong entry into her.
Yeah, it was a good. Her actual dialogue demonstrated her character growth from, like, if you look at season 4, 7 of 9 versus like the more like the moments where she expresses concern for people in this episode, it's done in a way that makes sense for the character, that she is who she is, but also she's definitely changed. Like, and obviously we just watched an episode where that was extremely in focus, front and center, but it's more subtly demonstrated here.
So Harry fronts for a little bit as they're mooping around astrometrics, and then once you know it, he has the vapors get to him for a moment, and he stumbles and glows. And when that stuff happens in Star Trek, you never really know, is this something that only I can see as an audience member because I'm getting like insight, or is this fucking person really glowing like a light bulb? And in this case, 7 of 9's like, hey, what was that? You just glowed. And he's like, no, I think you missed off something. She's like, no, your skin just turned on and off like bioluminescence. Something is wrong with you. You need to go to sickbay. And Harry's like, no. And she's like, you must comply. Which, again, we haven't really seen 7 pull rank, but I think she just has that big dick energy to bully.
Yeah,
bridge
she's
officers.
just like, we gotta tell her no. She's just gonna fucking grab you with her fucking Borg super strength and make you. So
yeah,
like, unlike Tuvok, she doesn't have restraint in using her superpowers.
So she hauls his ass off to sickbay, and we get a little exchange with a lot of hand wringing until Harry finally admits to the doctor, we had sex. Like, what a big revelation. Thank God there isn't a deeper emotional conversation, because earlier you talk about how Garrett goes up against 7, he goes up against his girlfriend, he goes up against the Janeway, and everybody really props the ball up, and he can't get anywhere near the hoop to deliver. Thank God
they're not trying to outact him in those scenes, but they still do.
And thank God there's nothing heavy and emotional here between him and the doctor, because him having to act up against the doctor with the performance he gives in this episode would have been like watching Mike Tyson in the ring with a preschooler. So at least the writers showed compassion there.
Is we're already letting him get crushed by everybody else on the like, even Tom is like more in tune with his character and giving more effort. Like, Robert Duncan McNeil is better in this episode than he is. Like, everyone he shares scenes with shows him up. Like, even this guest star is more charming and believable and charismatic than he is. Like, yeah. So they spare him they spare him the fate of having fucking Bobby Picardo take his balls off too.
I think it's a weak spot in Garrett Wang that he has a hard time dealing with love on screen as a motivator, because when we look at Timeless, where he's dealing with guilt and self-loathing, he does a great job. You look at what I think was the strongest entry into the Harry Kim experience was Hunter's Part 1 and 2, where he leads the Federation resistance and sabotages the holodeck. Like, Ride or Die Kim was fucking awesome, and that was some real great, intense emotional acting out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a couple others, but like you put him around girls and his shit falls apart, I think.
And that could be it. You never know why sometimes you overperform. Sometimes it's finding that motivation that allows you to do so. Perhaps I do think that maybe his baseline is just not there. I think some specific episodes, it's like when you can really see the ball when you're a baseball player, you go 5 for 5 that day, and he's just doesn't usually get into that zone. So then this is a perfect example of it. And the fact that a lot of these episodes have involved a romantic element, there could be linkage there. I don't know. It'll be interesting to hear him talk about it once they get to the first one of those, like when they have Harry Kim's big day out, the episode, to see if
non sequitur, my old foe,
to see if he talks about like finding motivation and romance, and if that is something he struggles with. It'd be interesting to know. So that we've already talked to each other now for
the
an
doctor
hour and a
rats
half.
him out.
So let's turbocharge the rest of our discussion. You mentioned
Doctor rats him out. The captain. Again, I want to read it again. You need okay from your commanding officer and clearance from the chief medical officer before you fucking alien. Since when? I cannot get that is the weakest shit for season 5. Okay.
Since did they have to make this rule because they had too many child support payments they had to make on the behalf of William Riker? Is this ridiculous. A new thing?
We jump into what's arguably a B plot, and that is Neelix ambushing Tuvok and saying, hey, listen, yet again, people stealing out of the fucking pantry. We haven't talked about that since the multiple personality disorder episode, but hey, I got people in there and look at my findings. And Tuvok, once again, just fucking smugly dismissing him. And it's like, you guys are supposed to be bros on a certain level. Even if we discount Tuvok's post-Rise, the elevator episode, there should be some level of professionalism there. And instead, Tuvok writes him off until he remembers he's forcefully reminded that Detective Neelix is infinitely better than Detective Tuvok. The alligator wants to eat Detective Neelix because it is greater than Detective Tuvok. Someone was fucking around with the replicator in the mess hall. Not only were they fucking around stealing protein bars, but also impacting the environmental controls in some Jeffries tubes. Wouldn't you know it? There's a stowaway there, and we get introduced to this B plot that things are not all nice and beautiful on the generational ship. There's a large contingent of people who feel that they are imprisoned and they want to escape, and there's this bullshit resistance.
The 90s Hottie is part of that resistance, and we find that out because despite being told by Janeway, and to K. Mulgrew's credit, I think all her dialogue and all her end of her scenes are great. Like, she plays the disappointed commander very well. She's stern. She expresses why, like, the consequences of Harry's actions are such, right? Like, listen, you deciding to play grab ass with this lady has actually cost this ship something. We're trying to establish connection with these people. And oh, by the way, we're kind of hoping they would help us out with their technology, and you fucked that up because you wanted to fuck the hot chick. Good job, buddy. Like, all of that works well for me. Obviously, Harry disregards the order to break up with her and decides to, for some reason, hijack a shuttle and beam her on to create his own little private F shack. Like you said, maybe he learned it from Tom. But apparently not enough of the shuttlecraft have blown up, and Tuvok finally does his job for once.
Pull over. Detective Tuvok is on the case.
So after Neelix did his job better than him, he decided to like pay attention, and he noticed that one of his death carts was missing. And
I can't let Tuvok slide on this, man. When they pull the fucking stowaway off, and it's Chakotay and it's Tuvok interrogating him in the briefing room.
Oh God, it's so good.
How did you get on the ship? And the dude looks at Tuvok and he says, and I quote, "Your tech is easy to circumvent. Your locks are bullshit. I can go into the Borg's alcove. The mass shooter who shoots the joint up every other episode, and I can pull a fucking chip and read the captain's log. Like, your work is sloppy. You're terrible."
I mean, I'm just glad that the episode could really be a tour de force to emphasize that.
There's another good point.
Harry Kim's bullshit dialogue, and when he's like in his F shack with his girlfriend, of like, oh boy, I don't want it to be Tuvok. He gets all persnickety if there's even an electron out of place. Like bullshit. He was actually physically saying to Neelix, I don't care if people are stealing food. I don't.
There's one thing you can count on.
Shit.
There's one thing you can count on, that Tuvok motherfucker. It's he loves to cock block me. He stole a hologram from me once on the Polynesian resort, and I'll never forgive him. I also want to point out the dude during the interrogation who calls Tuvok terrible. Chakotay is like, I want to know more about the Resistance. And he's like, no, I won't talk to you. And then Tuvok's like, all right, we'll take him to the brig. And then he's like, I will help you. Just tell me what I want to know. And the guy's like sitting tight-lipped. And he's like, take him to the brig. And the guy's like, or no, take him back and give him to, Dumb and Dumber. And he's like, you can tell him that there's hundreds of us. And I'm like, wait, did you just fold? Did you just act like... I want to jump back to one of our previous Hall of Fames, which is the cave-in confession, which we really opened up back in the shoot where Janeway had the children she was going to send off to prison until... she found out the real depths.
I understand your totalitarian government will probably fucking kill you if I turn you over. I don't care.
Yeah. Like, I'll never tell you anything. Wait, okay, here's everything. And it's like, so you weren't going to negotiate for like profit, but now you're already getting set up the river, and I'd be like, there's hundreds of us. Viva la resistance. Like, okay, Kenneth Biller, whatever, dude. And then the scene too, before Harry goes like full shuttlecraft abduction moment, and it's not abduction, it's a consensual transportation, but Janeway gives him like a formal reprimand, which we're led to believe fucking matters, even though it doesn't, because it's a ship out in the middle of the Delta Quadrant. Nobody's going anywhere. Everybody disobeys Janeway all the time. No fucks given. But Chakotay's like, listen, maybe you went too heavy on this, and did he do something bad, or did he just disappoint you? And then Janeway has a fucking audacity to go back and say, he hasn't earned the right to question my orders. Like, hold on. We can say a lot of shit about Harry Kim, but how many times has he saved the fucking ship now, including dying once in the cold grip of space in Deathlock? And also
And recently, this season, you found out he bent space and time to save your life, that he was so ruined by the idea that he could possibly be responsible for the death of everyone on Voyager. He's like, I have to devote every waking moment to breaking the Temporal Prime Directive to undo my mistake to the point, where I will unwrite reality to do so.
This dude has, and then let me jump back into the Hunted or Hunter game, whatever the Nazi, not Harkonnen. What are those guys called? What are the Predators called?
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. I forget
the
their
Nazi
name.
Similar again, where it's Harry Kim who disrupts, at great risk to himself, fucking sabotages the entire holodeck so the Federation can break their Matrix mind spell and get out. Like, this dude has carried the ship on his back numerous times. Ensign jokes aside that he never gets promoted, like, have the fucking audacity to say he hasn't earned the right to question my orders. Fuck off. Tuvok, your BFF fucking ganked Scivian technology along with Seska, the Obsidian Order agent, and he got a slap on the wrist behind closed doors, and you're giving this dude a fucking write-up because he's getting his dick wet. Like, I wish Riker would have just walked out of a closet and fucking choked her. Like, there's also really good.
I'm sorry. It's just I just have that vision of like she's in the middle of like dressing him down over having sex with this lady, and then just out of a closet with a steel chair like John Cena comes Will Riker.
No.
Straight burgundy episode. Like
he comes out doing the Riker like leaning forward, determined walk.
no,
like he's
that's
gonna
it.
walk.
He puts the chair down, then he sits in it, like does the Riker maneuver.
Yeah, and kicks her in the head in the process. That's what she's dressing him down. He comes in, sets a chair down. Riker maneuvers over the chair, kicks her in the head, knocks her out, and says, "Now listen, son. Your problem is you didn't have enough peanut butter involved in the sexual act. You're gonna learn from a show. Your first problem is you didn't have a beard. Your second problem was not enough peanut butter. I'm gonna teach you this move. It's called the Rusty Trombone. They're gonna love it." There's a walk and talk where Dumb and Dumber, aka Rocket, is giving Janeway some shit. Oh, you guys have disrespected our ways, and this Harry Kim seducing my people, and the problems you're making. And Janeway's like, "Well, what have you done to punish it?" And he's like, "Well, she's gonna be heartbroken forever. Your officers make a habit of seducing everybody. I have a feeling that this Ensign Kim has left behind a trail of broken hearts." And it's like, actually, it's more like a trail of broken skulls. This guy's kind of a psycho that like usually attacks girls that want to do him. So I think you should probably count yourself lucky here, bub.
It's about that. Not quite.
Just be happy he didn't wrap her up in a chair and bust her over the head with a real heavy Voss. Like that was a real problem on Space Cougar Planet.
We took a while for us to clean that up. Just saying.
So they wrap up the rest of the episode kind of rushed. We find out that there's microfractures in the hull that have been thwarting the engine restarting process, that has spread to Voyager, that the hull microfractures are the cause of a artificial parasite that was specifically introduced by the Resistance to break up the superstructure of the generational ship in an effort to free all of the pods so people can have their own control over destiny, whatever, who cares. Voyager hangs on in there during the moment of need and keeps their hull integrity and shows Dumb and Dumber that, hey, not all aliens are bad and you got to let the people go and grow and listen to me because I'm 90s hot. And he's like, okay, fine. And then the ship blows up and there's a bunch of other little pod ships which immediately ignite their thrusters and just fly off like a beautiful coordinated multi-stage rocket launch to the moon.
I will say that the episode has one more good scene where, at least for Janeway's side, it shines, where they do a tracking shot from the briefing room into the ready room, which I think is the first time they've ever done that.
Very
like
good.
a single shot tracking shot, which was neat. It was very noticeable. And, Janeway's like trying really hard to let Ensign Kim off the hook, and he won't take it. And, she tries to talk him through how she's feeling. And of course he just sounds whiny and entitled and can't quite like get into dramatic mode, but not so for Janeway. Janeway's trying to carry that scene despite herself. And then I think even more so at the end when they all part ways and he's dealing with the physiological issues that came from the alien bonding, that she comes to sickbay and sits down next to him and has a really heartfelt speech where she's like, I feel differently about you than everyone else in the ship. And that's not that I don't care about everyone else. It's that what she says without saying is, I got you stuck out in the Delta Quadrant on your first space mission. And I feel protective of you in a very motherly way. And would I have been pissed if someone else had done this? Yes. But I wouldn't have been surprised, and really she wouldn't have been disappointed. And she kind of comes around to understanding that he was, growing up, in young adulthood, as we all do, and doing some shit.
I've never gotten that feeling. I think the people versus Star Trek Voyager is right. This guy should have been cast as a 17 or an 18-year-old. Getting a full adult man, you do not get that at any point in Voyager that Harry Kim is young or inexperienced.
I think that really he plays it too too confidently.
He comes off like Burt Ward Robin, not as like a guy who's fresh out of high school. And yeah, it really highlights the deficits that Garrett's bringing into this. His shtick through the rest of the episode is that there's a biological component to the suffering, the heartbreak he's going through, and the doctor can cure him of it, but no, he wants to ride it out. Harry Kim's either a sadist or a fucking borderline who wants to call as much attention to his suffering as possible. It gets super eye rolly. You've reminded me that like season 5 is an episode of everybody's life is shitty and Bran Branagh is going to bring suffering to everyone, and also everybody gets to take a turn blowing up on Janeway. Paris tells her off. Kim tells her off hard in this one. Neelix tells her off in Once Upon a Time. And I feel like there's a couple other ones that, aren't jumping out at me right now, but like just she gets shit on left and right and just folds like a house of cards relentlessly. There's a wrap-up scene at the end where, Kim's sitting there moping.
Yeah. That's what I was just talking
about. In the mess hall, and Seven comes in because we need to get more Jerry Ryan.
Oh yeah. The second one, I forgot. Yes, the other one that felt very unnecessary.
The miss here is you have a guy who has thought that he has fallen in love and has been heartbroken, and it feels like a part of him has been ripped out. And he is looking for someone to confide in and find solace. And there you've got Neelix in the empty mess hall. Neelix, who was madly in love with his child bride, Kes, who dumped him, who had this fucking, this massive relationship that was a defining trait of his character, swept under the rug and completely fucking botched and handled, who doesn't have any sort of closure until she's saying goodbye. I'm going to go be a Super Saiyan off in fucking hyperspace or whatever. And instead of him being like, hey, how did you ever get over Kes? How did you deal with that loss? He's just like, well, I left some soup in the kitchen for you because it's soup and I'll see you later. Cha-cha-cha.
Yeah, he really, like, that's the second time I think we've brought up, like, this should have been Neelix, why wasn't it? I'm
a Neelix fanboy, I think. Like, he was such a rat shit character starting off with, and Ethan Phillips has really turned him into something great, and it's just miss after miss after miss. And in this case, we want to have 7 of 9 on screen for whatever goddamn reason, instead of someone who could have made a genuine connection and really paired well with the scene. Like, and he was already there. Like, fuck you. Do something with this character. It could be a good character, but maybe they just didn't want Ethan, Phillips to have to fucking clown Garrett. Again, like, you're not going to bring out Iron Mike. You're not going to bring out Evander Holyfield because, just they're trying to go easy on him at this point. Put Sex Robot out there and we'll make do. Exhausting. Right. Exhausting. Fuck that episode.
I am exhausted as well. I'm exhausted with humor. I just like the idea of Will Riker as this figure of such sexual potency that they had to make regulations where you need a fucking signed permission slip from
weak as shit
officer.
I thought I was mad about Cottrell. I'm mad about this. Ridiculous, Joe. All right, so you're saying it's going to be season 5, episode 18. Netflix. I don't want you
to hold on. Don't read it. Close that.
I closed it, Joe.
Oh, good.
For you.
I want you to close it because this is actually me trying to protect you. Our next episode, I don't want you to be spoiled about whatsoever. I just want you to watch it. It's called Course Oblivion. This is, for Voyager fans, will know exactly which one this one is. The very generic description is, as Voyager crew members begin dying, they make a startling discovery. That's all I'll say.
I think I know what it's going to be.
Damn it.
Why did you read that? You told me not to read it. Why would you tell me to read it? Why would you tell me not to read it and then you read it?
Because I wanted to I didn't know if it was going to go into too much detail in the Netflix description. And I'm like, well, this sentence is very generic. That's on Memory Alpha.
I have a
And
feeling this is going to be a throwback to an earlier season 5 entry.
We're gonna find out.
I just found out. And no means yes. All right, man. Yeah, this was a rough one. This
I didn't hate it. Like I know you hated it, but I feel
I didn't
like,
hate it. It was just a lot. It was a good podcast one. You know, it wasn't a waste of
yeah.
time.
Oh no, it was. It was fun to talk about, but like I didn't hate this the same way I hate some of the real stinkers. I haven't hated an episode of this show in that way in a long time. And like even this being such a clear miss on what they were trying to accomplish, it's still like the effect shot of the ship was good. All of the acting, aside from Garrett Wang's acting, was great. You know that
Hottie was Hottie.
Hottie was Hottie. Like Tuvok got clowned a lot.
Did you see the
Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber guy like had his throat slit?
Yeah,
That was
apparently it was suicide. That was how
I don't know who
Charles Rocket died. Yeah,
I we need Detective Tuvok on that one. Slit throat's not really a. You know what? Let's do him right. Let's get Detective Deluxe on that. I need.
There you go. Hey, you'll find who's responsible and throw him into space hell. So I mean, we know that's probably more effective.
Judge Neelix.
And speaking of effectiveness,
I am the law.
We will see you guys next week.